like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting, this meeting of Tuesday, August 20th of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs. Please rise for our invocation led by Pastor John Byer, and I'll lead the pledge. Thank you.
We pray. Father in heaven, we just want to give you all praise and glory, for you made this world and all things. You've given us life, and you've redeemed our lives through the blood of your Son, Jesus, and you've called us to be citizens of this great land and of this great city, and we're here to ask your blessing on all of us who dwell in this place. We ask that you pour out your Spirit on this meeting tonight. We invite you, Holy Spirit, to come and to rest on each and every one of us who are here, to give us that wisdom and that peace as you lead and guide us in ways that are right and righteous in your ways. We also ask for your holy angels to come and especially minister in the city to protect those who protect us and serve, that you break the bonds of the enemy in this place so that we live peaceably with one another. It's a safe place to raise our children, and we ask your blessing on the children as they go back to school, that they grow up and they prosper and they learn, and they are a blessing not only to this city but wherever you send them. So I invite you to come. We want all things to bring you all the praise and all the glory. So we give you praise in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call this meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Director Holliday? Here. Jones?
Here.
Clark? Here. Weatherford? Garcia?
Here.
Foley?
Here.
Mayor McCabe?
Here. This time we'll consider approval of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or items to be moved from the consent agenda to new business?
Mayor, I do have one item I'd like to bring to the board's attention. Agenda item number 9, which is a resolution condemning certain real property at 111 Cypress Street. The board may recall that this was on the last agenda, and we had an issue with the timing on that. Unfortunately, the warning order that was published gave the date of the previous meeting when it was on your agenda. So we're needing to have the attorney at Latham, Mr. Hickam, to reissue that warning order and have it published. And so for that purpose, I'd ask that it be removed from tonight's agenda.
Okay.
So moved.
A motion to remove item 9 from the agenda. Second?
Second.
Second by Lane Jones. All in favor of removing item 9 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we need approval of the agenda as amended.
Yes, sir.
Need a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Director
Second.
Clark, Director Jones. All in favor of the agenda as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes of August 6th, 2019? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Director Clark, Director Foley, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Recognition of guests. Mr. Gary Troutman. Is Gary here today? Here he is. Mr. Troutman is President and CEO of Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and comes regularly, quarterly, regularly.
Yes, sir.
To give an update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McCabe and board. Appreciate the time tonight. Give you a quick update of what we've done the last 2.5, 3 months. Currently, we have 18 projects that we're working on with the Metro Partnership. 4 of those I would categorize as very active. 5 are in process that we've told you about in the past. Total involving 493 jobs and over $55 million in capital investment. I know the mayor's been a fan and on record is with a fan of regionalization. Just want to point out that we have partnered with Hot Spring County on two recent projects, one for Veranda Luxury Pontoons and just the last few weeks for CMT that frankly we consider Hot Springs, but they fall just outside our county line in Hot Spring County. Recently attended the Southern Economic Development Council Convention in New Orleans, but I want to thank the Mayor and City Manager Burrow for participating in a site visit. We are among the three finalists to host this convention in 2022, along with San Antonio and Austin. So we're very excited about that. Probably find out in December. They've been here. They have not been to San Antonio and Austin yet for those site visits. The one thing that I know you've been hearing about, and it may actually cross over to the chamber a little bit, but I still think it bears bringing up tonight. We've been heavily involved with the ACTI, subsequent closing of the building, as you probably all have read. I'd like to, if I may, use this public forum to publicly thank Clay Farrar, Dr. Jack Porter, and retired Colonel Mike White, who've all been very involved and integral, have spent many hours and hours on this project already. We've had Congressman Westerman involved. We've got all our locally elected officials, and we've had Clay and Jack have facilitated several meetings already. We're exploring every avenue we can. You probably read that we asked last Monday for the state to hold on to the property for another year and pay for a Phase 1 environmental study. There's just so many factors there on the property that need to be addressed over 59 years of use by the state before they deed it back to the federal government. And, I think most people are of the opinion that it needs, as a good tenant, that it's just a reasonable step that they would take. So we'll continue to monitor that, but I would ask that Clay Farrar and Dr. Jack Porter and Mike White be commended for all their time in leading the city and the community on this project. Moving on, we nominated Vince Signorelli and Tanner's Team Sports for a Governor's Award on Exporting, and he subsequently won that, which is highlighted another local business. We continue to work with Hot Springs Village, Malvern, and Arkadelphia on mutual projects. We just met all together last Friday. We submitted a package to AEDO for recertification. We're the only accredited economic development organization in the state, and we hope to get news soon that we are good for another 3 years on that. We continue to meet with Don Beavers. He chairs our transportation committee. City Manager Burrow has worked, and as Mayor McCabe has in the past, on this committee, and we're looking to submit. I hope to come back to you in probably a couple months with a list of recommendations that we hope to take to RDOT before the end of the year of projects we'd like to see in Hot Springs and Garland County. I'd like to point out to you that Express Boats and Veranda Luxury Pontoons had a dealer dinner here recently, July 28th. They brought in over 100 dealers from across the country and over 270 attendees. So that was just, Sigma Supply does something similarly throughout the year, and just a lot of folks from across the country coming into Hot Springs and seeing what all we have to offer. So commend them for doing that. Attended a Hot Spring County plan unveiling today with Governor Hutchinson in Malvern, and that was a nice showing of the community coming together. Governor Hutchinson announced at that meeting that our unemployment rate now is 3.4%, even lower than what we'd been reading. And I'm on the positive side that our graduation rate for high school in Arkansas is 88%, which places us 14th in the country. And this morning, Mayor, as you know, we were honored to have a ribbon cutting at Hotel Hale and officially have your grand opening. And I'll close with this. We talked about broadband in some detail for the past 2 years, and we said that we were waiting for August of 2019. Well, it's here, and Ritter Communications is going to be announcing I'm sure in several different avenues that they'll be opening their 6 ponds between now and the end of the year. So anxious to welcome them here and excited about the successes we may have having enhanced broadband availability in Hot Springs. So that concludes my report. Be happy to try to answer any questions if I may.
Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. Gary, I was curious as to the number of employees by business that y'all provide, because that's in our annual report and statistics. Do you have a breakdown between full-time and part-time employees in those numbers?
Director Garcia, I don't know that I have a breakdown on that. I can try to track that down for you. Most of the jobs that we are working on presumably are full-time because the state requires a certain minimum hourly wage, but we can certainly go back and typically the jobs we're looking for, engineers, machinists, welders, that type of thing at a lot of these projects that the last 5 projects we've done. But.
Oh, well, I was referring to you. We always have the top employers in the city, and the number of employees by each employer is obtained from the Chamber of Commerce. And I didn't know if that included both full-time and part-time employees, or if they were FTEs or all full-time.
I don't have that broken down in front of me, but we can.
No, I just didn't know if you knew off the head.
Off the top of my
your
head, I
how they
don't.
put
Sorry.
that together, or if y'all had that breakdown.
We can certainly try to get it in more detail. When we ask say a CHI St. Vincent or an Oaklawn, they don't they give us a total count. We don't, but we can.
Oh, but so they don't supply the numbers by.
Not necessarily, but that doesn't preclude us from asking for it in detail in the future. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions of Mr. Troutman?
Thank you.
Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Appreciate
you all.
At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Elmer Beard to the podium, and we have a proclamation to read. Just want to, each and every day when we go home, we can turn on our TV and hear stories about race relations, and sometimes, or most of the time, not all that positive, sometimes very positive as people in varied communities work together to better their communities. But unfortunately, a lot of times it's the negatives. They get the airtime. But you go back 50 years ago, in the 60s, we lived that each and every day. And I was a young boy back then, and saw that on the TV each and every day. And communities all around the country dealt with that, and they dealt with it in different ways. And here in our community, we had a group of African Americans who moved forward in a very peaceful way and try to promote unity and togetherness and during those very volatile times. And we have a proclamation to read in recognition of the 50th anniversary of that time. Resolution number 1869. As civil rights movement was sweeping the nation, a group of young black men were fighting oppression here in the city of Hot Springs. The 5-member group, the Council of Liberation of Blacks, CLOB, included John Pascal, Elmer Beard, Edward Martin, Garland Puckett, and Eddie Scott. The City Board of Directors is hereby resolved as follows: whereas we commemorate the 50th anniversary of the establishment of CLOB in 1969, and whereas we acknowledge the leadership of CLOB for inspiring youth, mobilizing residents, and enacting change in the quest for racial equality and social justice, and whereas we remember their acts of peaceful protest and passive resistance, drawing attention to discriminatory practices that ran rampant during the 1960s, and whereas we appreciate their efforts to end segregation in the public and private sectors and diversify famed institutions and the labor market, and therefore be it resolved, we recognize the contributions of founding members of CLOB for their dedication and service in the struggle for freedom. And be it finally resolved, I, Pat McCabe, Mayor of the City of Hot Springs, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs, do hereby declare August 2019 as the golden anniversary for the Council of Liberation of Blacks and honor their achievements in being an amplified voice for a generation of African Americans. In witness whereof I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Hot Springs to be affixed on this 20th day of August in the year of our Lord 2019. And Director Jones and I will present this to you. Going to get a picture of that?
They did.
They did before.
Oh, okay.
Before the meeting started.
You want one more?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to the Board of Directors of the City of Hot Springs for the work that has gone into the proclamation and for the classic consideration that you have given this historical document. Garland Puckett is here. He's pointed out that I should come up. He did that 50 years ago also. I got called as treasurer secretary and for whatever reason it was. But there are two members here tonight, Garland Puckett and I, two deceased, and one is ill. And Garland also pointed out to me that at times there were hundreds of us, not just 5. And we tried to keep the balance and under control in the community. We became known as troublemakers, and that record will follow me to my grave, and I'm very proud of it tonight, and I'm sure Garland is too, because he has done well, and he remains a model for me. The City of Hot Springs is a great place for us to live. It's considerate of the progress that has been made in race relations, as the mayor has pointed out. We plan to continue that, and we have other resolutions to present to you in the future. We hope that you will be as cooperative toward those other resolutions in the future, the next few weeks, next few months, as you have been towards this one. Thank you for supporting CLOB. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gary.
At this time, we'll hear a report from our city manager, Mr. Bill Burrow.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I've got a boring report for all of you tonight. It's actually really exciting to report that the geotechnical driller and core company has begun boring a 3-inch sample bore into Blakely Mountain. They will bore around 2,500 feet into the mountain, which will take the next 2 to 3 months. This sample is very important. It will allow us to move forward with the design of the actual intake site. So that project continues to move, and we've got the access road. Everything's built, drilling machines there, and they're plugging away into the mountain. So we're very excited to start seeing some of those results. September, we're feast and famine with compost. We're famine in the spring and feasting in the fall when it comes to compost. So we've have a free loading month coming up in September. We've done these in the past, and they've been really successful. Compost is free every day, but for the month of September, we're also going to load it. You won't need a load ticket. We're going to load that for free as well. So please come out during that month and partake in this free compost drive. You know, one of the things that we take for granted is our information system sometimes. And really proud of Jeff Winter and his staff. They've been training and really educating all of our employees, especially those that have access to our email system. As part of our City Manager Association, I get emails on a daily basis, and usually once, sometimes twice a week, there'll be an article or something, a story in there about a city that's been attacked with ransomware. And the last one was this week. It was in Naples, Florida, and they only had a portion of their system that was taken, but it cost $700,000 to get their information back. There's some that have spent millions, $20 million in some cases. So, you know, we started working on that with cybersecurity, fake fish emails, In this past week, I'm proud to say that our employees hit 99.5%, which is really good. It's up from 85%. What does that mean? About 85% is 30 to 50 of these potential phishing ransomwares that we've opened, that our employees opened. So we have that. We're still rolling that out. I'm guilty with one. It looks so real that, I clicked on it. Luckily, it was on my phone, but they still tagged me and made me go through another 45 minutes of training. But I found one today, and I clicked the right button. So we're just proud of our information systems department. A lot of times they're under the radar, but they are saving us thousands and thousands and thousands of potential dollars from ransomware. So we really appreciate that. CDBG applications are due August the 28th. Applications for fiscal year 2020, the Community Development Block Grant, Housing, Neighborhood Revitalization, Economic Development, Public Services, and other eligible projects, they're due by 4 p.m. August the 28th. You can contact our planning department or our CDBG administrator, Michelle Sestilli, and her number is 501-276-7934. We'll put that up on the website for you as well. If you haven't seen the John Lee Webb on Pleasant Street National Historic recently, if you've been over on Pleasant Street, everybody should know the John Lee Webb house. I encourage you to drive by. It is impressive what they've done with this particular structure. It has a lot of history. This was done again courtesy through CDBG funds as well as other funds. Cheryl Batts and Phoebe, people helping others excel by example. They've just done a great job, and this will hopefully sooner than later, become the intergenerational leadership classes and a community cultural center. So very excited about that project, and the house is looking phenomenal. A couple other things. Employee survey, we've talked about that quite a bit with our board. That has been tested. It's finalized. We have that set to go. We've got a few kiosks we have to get set up in other departments, so those that don't have access to one of the computers will be able to use that and take that survey. So we're excited to see what those survey results are. And so hopefully within the next 2 weeks we'll start that. Probably take a couple of weeks to get everybody through it. But we're excited about that and finally got that off the ground. I know for some of our board members, we've talked about it for several years, so we're finally there. So glad to check that one off. Since our last meeting, I've actually been approached by two parties interested in the Majestic site. And as the board knows, we've kind of stayed that course to make sure that we've done our due diligence as we move through with that site. It's been somewhat slow, but a lot of that, if you'll recall, was the Brownsfield project that we had to go through and make sure that we had an environmental clearance. And that hasn't been that long ago that we actually received that when you look at that and put that in perspective. But we have stayed that course. As you know, we had a community involvement project with the University of Arkansas. We were hoping that would come back with one project for that Majestic site, and we would be able to do a feasibility or a marketability study and move forward with that. I think they ran into what staff ran into, and there was a lot of input for different types of projects for that particular site. So, when we got the report back, it really had 3 or 4 different projects that they thought were suitable for the site, and really not one that we could choose. So after we had time to digest that report, we decided to move forward with the marketability and feasibility studies. It won't be for one project. It will be for really any use on that property. Lance has worked really, really hard on this. He got the request for statement of qualifications out. We've received those qualifications from 5 reputable companies. Some you'll know: Thomas P. Miller and Associates, Weitzman Associates out of New York, Velocity Group out of Bentonville. They've done a lot of work in Arkansas. Design Workshop, who's actually here doing work with our comprehensive plan. And then Inveritus out of Little Rock. So we've got 5 really good companies. That process is in the rate and rank period now. Once those 5 proposals or statement of qualifications get ranked, we'll take that top ranking firm and start negotiations. If we're not able to negotiate what we have in that particular budget, then we'll go to the next one. I think any of these can do a really phenomenal job for us, but we will start that negotiation with that first. Our goal is to bring that to the board in your first meeting in September, which I think is September 3rd. So that should be in front of you. Now, that's kind of the course that we've been on and we continue to be on. I'm not asking the board to make any kind of a vote tonight, but I do need some direction. As I mentioned, 2 parties that are interested in the Majestic site, Grand Point Investment Group, as well as VIPA Hotels, VIPA. Both of them were here at the U of A presentation over at the convention center. You know, one had a letter of intent that was $2.1 million to purchase the property, wanted a 6-month feasibility study time frame to see if that was something they'd move forward with. Should they not move forward, that money returns back to Grand Point, so less $100. There is a clause in there that we could negotiate earnest money, but I didn't see anything in the actual contract itself, and I think City Attorney Albright also reviewed that, and it didn't look like, you know, we were doing anything more than just having a contract, 6-month contract for that property. Next, we had the offer from VIPA Hotels, and that was at the current assessed value of that property. Just need to know if the board wants to entertain these type offers as they come in, or if you direct staff to continue the course. If it's not something we're going to move forward with, then we're going to continue that course, open the rate the SOQs, bring that to you September 3rd, and try to make sure that we keep that on a fast timeline, or as fast as we can, to be able to make a decision. I really think we'll be able to get these marketability study back within 6 to 8 weeks and get that back in front of the board so we can determine what's going to happen on that site and still do the RFP, which at that point we would be visiting with these interested parties depending on what that is. As you know, during that public meeting, we heard everything from a resort hotel to a hot air balloon.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff in between. And then there's some that don't want to see anything but green space. So, my recommendation is we continue the course, let us do the marketability study, bring that back to you at a later date with those results. And if the board wants to see anything different, please let me know.
Bill, when we started this process, we resolved to go cautiously. The board sat down and determined what we were going to require of any developer up there. There were 3 or 4 criteria that they would have to meet in order for us to even consider them. And we weren't going to sell the property. We want to maintain we want to maintain the property, but the most important thing we resolved was that we were going to get the public's input. We were going to get the input, we were going to formulate a plan, take it back to the public. And I think accepting any of that money early, I know it's a temptation to try to recover our $2 million, but to accept any of that, I think violates our commitment with the community, and I think we ought to stay the course.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
I just want to second that notion. I absolutely agree that, I wasn't here in the beginning, but I do know, living in that district, this is my neighbors, there's a lot of passion behind this project. There's a lot of time people have spent in giving us their opinions, and I think that if we shift direction now, it definitely devalues the time that our residents have spent communicating with us and the time that we've spent communicating with them. So I agree. I think we need to stick to the path that we've set forward and have the consultants come forward so we can find what's best. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I think we need to do it as best we can, as quite frankly, as long as that takes. So it's really the best option for our city.
Somebody
Any director have a view different than director, the two directors?
There's a fairly strong business sentiment out there that says, what business do you have about telling us what we want to do with our money on that piece of property? If you recall, that had a going business at one time, and if the business fails, we fail as a community, and I don't think we can let that happen. Like was said before, I think this is a once-in-our-lifetime decision that we have to get right.
Well, we will move forward with the ranking of those SOQs, and we'll be bringing something to you, your first meeting in September, with hopefully a contract with one of the 5 companies I just mentioned to perform that marketability and feasibility study. And really, once that returns, I think the board will have all the information you need to direct staff to move forward with whichever way we go. Last 2 things, Mayor. We will have a work session on August 27th. We're going to talk a little bit about solar arrays. We've talked about that in the past. Scenic Hill Solar will be here to present some of their findings in the work that we've done throughout the properties that the city owns. This is something that through the last legislative session has really opened up the ability for cities to look at solar array and sustainable energy. We're seeing every day we see a new city that's signing a contract with 1, 2, 3. There's 3 or 4 companies out there that are really pushing this. Part of that is the tax credits for 2019. They're about 30%, and then they drop, I think, 4% after the end of this year. But we are looking at some potential there. I think it looks really good. We sent them back after a meeting this week to look at some of that documentation, kind of zero that in, so we'd have enough information to present the board. But boots have been on the ground. They've looked at the sites. We had to make some changes last week, but I think we've got enough to at least be able to have that work session with the board to see if that's something we want to move forward with. But it's something that I think is a real benefit, or could be a real benefit to our community. And lastly, we'll have a special called meeting on August the 27th. We've noticed already. We'll probably send another out. That will be for refinancing one of our water bonds, the 2014 water bond. When we initially started talking about this, it was around $300,000 in savings throughout that bond. With interest rates doing what they've done, and we think will stay at least until that point. We talked today and met, Doretha and I, with Bob Wright with Cruz, our financial advisor. Those savings have now increased to a little over $700,000. So we think that time is right to bring that in front of you. So that special call will happen August 27th. And we're, things get real weird, as he put it, during the holiday seasons. They get a little more volatile, so they're trying to lock that in before anything else. It could go down again, could go up. We just don't know. But with $700,000 in savings, we need to try to lock that down. Mayor, that concludes my report. I know it was long. Thank you.
It was very informative. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll hear from directors on announcements of upcoming events. Anybody got an upcoming? Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sir. On tomorrow, Wednesday, August 21st, I would like to invite you to a community meeting at 4 o'clock at the center at 305 Forest Lakes Boulevard. Mr. Mark Headley, who is the district director for Hot Springs with the Arkansas Department of Transportation, and Travis Brooks of the Transportation Planning and Policy Division of the Department of Transportation will be there with presentations and have potential plans. They are still in the working process of identifying how to improve traffic flow at our intersections with the expressway. This includes Central and the Expressway, Carpenter Dam, Higdon Ferry, 270 West and 70 West, and all of those are state highways, and those responsibilities lie with the Arkansas Department of Transportation. So please, if you have an opportunity and are interested in this, to come out and you can ask some questions, and Mr. Travis Brooks will be going over those plans. And there will also be some refreshments. So come on over. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Director
I have-
Holliday.
Thank you. A quick save the date. It's a little ways off, but September 26th from 6 to 8:30 is Barn Bash 2, which is presented by Hot Springs Civitans Club, and they're doing a fundraiser for accessible playground equipment for Watkins Park. So I just want to make sure that's on people's radars a little sooner than later. So I'll have more information in the future, but September 26th for that fundraiser.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move on. At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda. The consent agenda are items of a routine nature that do not require or merit discussion, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So move.
Motion by Director Garcia,
Second.
seconded by Director Clark. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda is approved. This time, we have a public hearing to conduct a public hearing on the issue of vacating a portion of a certain street right-of-way located along Highland Street and a portion of an unnamed alley between Highland and Ida Streets. Are there any individuals that have signed up for the public hearing? Anybody would like to speak on this subject matter? Going once? Twice? Public hearing is closed. Maybe one of the shortest, most well-run public hearings in the history
Magnificent job.
of
Mayor.
Hot Springs.
Magnificent job.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll consider Resolution R-19-138 and ask the city attorney to read by title.
Mayor, this is Resolution R-19-138, a resolution awarding a bid to Lear Painting Enterprises, Inc. for industrial park water tank repairs and painting. That concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Director Fowley, seconded by Director Garcia. And Mr. Todd Pillar will be providing a staff report. Mr. Pillar is a major capital project manager for the city of Hot Springs. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution to award the bid for Lear. It's spelled L-E-H-E-R, but it's pronounced Lear. They're out of Mayflower, Arkansas, for our industrial tank repainting, ADH, Arkansas Health Department, upgrades and repairs. They were the low responsible bidder out of 6 bidders, and it's the closest bid since I've been here at the city.
$223, $24.
It's right, Mayor. $231 separated the bids. It was amazing.
Crazy.
And all 6 bidders were within $50,000. I've never had that happen. But it's the same as a Hollywood tank. It was built in 1964. So it has the same paint on it before. So it will look like Casper the Ghost come Halloween with containment to contain the lead paint when they take it off. They'll start right here after Labor Day. But their bid price was $445,777, and it will come out of the 2018 Water Bond Fund. And it's very much the same scope of work as the Hollywood tank. There's not much more to say than that. So I'll answer any questions.
Todd, do you
questions?
recall off the top of your head what it was the Hollywood tank cost?
The Hollywood tank was right at, when it got done, about $700,000. The engineer's estimate on this tank was $620,000. And we came in at $445,000.
Okay.
But I think they gave their cushion a little bit more because the Hollywood tank was 1 million gallons,
Okay.
and this is only 250,000 gallons.
Okay.
It won't take quite as much paint. Just for your knowledge, the Hollywood tank took 700 gallons of paint.
We adding a mixer?
I'm sorry?
Is there a mixer in this one?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir. There's a mixer and other repairs we're doing to in outlet tanks or in outlet lines, and a lot of staff. Monty's utility crews have done some of the prior work before this guy shows up.
Very good.
I was kind of surprised when I was looking at those bids that they have about 5 or 6 different categories of expenses to make up their bid, and they were all over the board. But when you got down to the bottom line, they were all really fairly close, as you indicated.
Right, exactly right.
So, any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Director Holliday. Aye. Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Folly.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Resolution is adopted.
Thank you very much.
Just for the audience interest, or perhaps they have no interest, but our agenda packet was 556 pages. So that's a lot of reading.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but you got all departments putting this together. You don't have one person doing 500. We got to read it. Thank you.
Ms. Morrissey typed the entire thing
Typed it up.
She typed the
It
entire
kind
thing
of does
up.
hit one person.
When did she start? Christmas?
She started when we left the last meeting.
All right, well, we got 2 more action items here. We're going to consider ordinance 1939, but before we can move forward, I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved, Mayor.
Director Jones,
Second.
Director Clark. All in favor of the motion and second to suspend the rules and read by title only, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance 1930, an ordinance vacating a portion of certain street right-of-way located along Highland Street and a portion of unnamed alley between Highland and Ida Streets, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt.
I so moved, Mayor.
Motion to adopt by Director Jones, seconded by
Folly.
Director Foley. And Ms. Harmony Morrissey, the city clerk, will provide the staff overview.
Yes, thank you. This is the ordinance we are considering after that very lengthy public hearing we just held. So petitioner is Oaklawn Jockey Club. They have petitioned to close part of Highland Street. I've put it up here for you. Part of Highland Street, as well as an unnamed alley between Highland and Ida. They filed a petition with a legal description and a map as required. A map has been circulated to city staff and utility providers for comment and input. The utility easements in the subject area will be retained. If the street is vacated, the city's water and wastewater mains will terminate at the new property line, and the portion on Oaklawn's property will become private and Oaklawn's to maintain. As a condition of the street vacation, Oaklawn will have 12 months to replat lots 14 and the parts of 10 through 13 under their ownership into one lot so as not to landlock any of those parcels. Notice of the public hearing that was held tonight was printed once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in the Sentinel Record as required by statute. If the board chooses to abandon the subject areas, statute requires the right-of-way to be split such that half goes to each adjoining property owner, but Oaklawn is the only property owner, so the property would go to Oaklawn Jockey Club. And if the board approves the ordinance abandoning the subject areas with the conditions, it'll be published in the Sentinel Record, and after 30 days, it will be recorded at the circuit clerk's office and sent to petitioner as the owner of said property.
Okay. Did we have any members of the public sign up to speak on this?
We did not.
We did not. Discussion amongst directors or questions of Ms. Morrissey?
Just a quick question. When that becomes privately maintained, does the city still have access to inspect if they had concerns on anything?
Yes, we retain all of the right-of-ways.
Thank you.
I read in the packet that assuming that this is approved, that the the water and sewer lines get adjusted to where the city no longer has responsibility. It'll be at the new
Becomes private.
right away or at the end. So do we move the meters or what do we do there? We just know that that's the demarcation point, or is there some other?
Everything stays in place for now, and then this is to facilitate the economic development of the area. So they will be making some changes in the area, and so with that will come some permits and some plans that will allow for future use of that. But right now, everything stays in place as is.
Because like as regular homeowners, we're responsible for everything on our side of the meter, and the city's responsible for everything on their side.
On the water side, Mayor, we will either meter or cap the line there. Wastewater will still continue to flow through as we have in many areas on the wastewater, but water lines that we're abating, they'll either be cut and capped or metered.
All right. Any further questions?
I'm glad you asked.
Please call the roll.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Folly.
Aye.
Holliday.
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. Now, our final action item of the evening is to consider ordinance number 01931. I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
Motion by Director Clark,
Second.
second by Director Garcia. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules and read by title only, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Council, please read by title.
Ordinance 01931, an ordinance accepting the annexation of certain territory located on 17.611 acres at Pearson Drive to the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, making same a part of the City of Hot Springs, assigning said lands to a zoning district, revising the future land use map, assigning said lands to a board district, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion.
Very good. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director
Second.
Foley, Director Garcia. The staff report is by Ms. Harmony Morrissey again, City
Me
Clerk.
again, it
Thank
is. The petitioner for this is KDB plus MMB LLC, represented by Agent Joe Gosley. They presented a motion to the Garland County Court requesting the annexation of certain property located along Pearson Drive. In addition to the petition, a legal description describing the property to be contiguous to the city limits and a map visually depicting the property was also filed at the county clerk's office. The subject property is all owned by the petitioner, and you can see the map is put up here. The area shaded is this is the subject area. The county judge set a public hearing on the annexation for July 10th. Prior to the hearing, notice was published in the Sentinel Record once a week for 3 consecutive weeks leading up to the hearing. At the hearing, Judge Mahoney granted the decree of annexation for petitioner. The order began the 30-day waiting period during which interested parties could institute a proceeding to prevent the annexation. Also, during the waiting period, the city clerk's office coordinated with Arkansas GIS as required by state law, and the petitioner filed an application for the initial zoning with the Hot Springs Planning Commission seeking R4, medium high-density residential zoning for the subject property. Planning Commission set the public hearing for August 8th and provided notice of this hearing in the Sentinel Record 15 days prior. The Planning Commission met to consider the recommendation of initial zoning on August 8th, and the resulting recommendation is that the Board of Directors zone the subject properties R4, residential medium high density, and amend the future land use designation to residential medium high. The recommendation was made after hearing from 10 to 11 citizens who spoke against the R4 zoning, and the recommendation was made with 5 votes for the R4 zoning, 1 against, and 1 abstaining. The 30-day waiting period has now passed with no court action having been filed. At this time, the Board of Directors may consider adopting an ordinance accepting the territory and assigning it a zone district and a board district. If the Board of Directors accepts the zoning recommendation of the Planning Commission, the zoning classification should be assigned at the same time they accept the property. If no zoning is assigned at this time, the territory shall be classified as R1, rural residential. A chart of information excerpted from the table of permitted uses in Title 16 of the Code will be on the screen shortly. it gives a little comparison between the different zones. And should the annexation be granted, District 6 would be the most proper assignment, as the adjacent property is located in that board district.
Very good. Any questions of Ms. Morrissey from the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to the public. We have a number of people who have signed up to speak, and I just remind those who speak that we allot 3 minutes and time for each speaker, and certainly if your comments have already been made by a previous speaker, you can certainly stand up at your place and say, my comments have already been made. And if you have individuals who are supportive of your position, but they're not going to be speaking, if they want to stand up in show of support of your position while you speak, they certainly may do so. At times, this is a fairly straightforward ordinance. We've had some in the past that a no meant yes and yes meant no, and people signed up on the wrong item. Category or column. So I'm going to go with those who are set up as for this ordinance, and if by chance you signed on the wrong side, you can still come forward and speak your position, and we'll certainly understand that you may be speaking on the opposite side of what you might have signed up for. So at this time, and we'd like you to, when you come forward, to state your name and your address for the record. And if you're in the city, what city district you're in. So at this time, we'll begin on those who signed up to speak for the ordinance. Ms. Peggy Bodeman, would you please come forward and restate your name and give us your address?
Good evening. My name's Peggy Bodeman, and my address is 600 Cantrell Street here in Hot Springs. And is it District 6, I guess? Yes. So we are the owners, my husband and I, and my brother-in-law and his wife. We own the property. We would like to be able to have the property developed, whether we are involved in it or whether we actually just sell it off. But the property is, it's been approved by the zoning committee for R4, which they say was the highest and best use of the property. It's not suitable for single housing building. It has a big power line across it. It is. We've had several builders look at it and shake their head. They're not interested in that type of building for that property. The area has a multi-family apartment complex next to it, and we feel like the best use of it is for multifamily. It also is a great opportunity to put in housing in Lakeside School District, and I think we would all agree that Lakeside has a need for affordable housing in that area. I think people who may be opposed to it are opposed to just the location close to their neighborhood where they live, but I'm not sure that they can see that property from their neighborhood. Now, they may drive by it if they come in off the road that the Budweiser is on, and turn on to Pearson. They may drive by the property. It's a horrible road, and although the zoning committee did not say that the road has to be fixed, it's obvious it will have to be fixed in order to do any development there, which I would hope we are all in favor of Pearson being a safer, wider road. So I think those are the only comments I have. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Well, 1 minute. Any questions of Ms. Bodeman? Hearing none. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
This time we'll hear from Mr. Joe Gosley Jr. Please come forward and state your name, restate your name and your address.
My name is Joe Gosley Jr., 217 Ledge Rock Road. I'm the real estate broker working with Peggy to sell this property or develop it. And I just want to, I don't want to repeat what she said, but I do want to emphasize the point that she brought out, that it's, I've heard some of the objections secondhand, and you know, I understand that, but I would like for the board to consider the folks that are objecting to the property. First of all, they can see the property, but what they're would be looking into is the hillside. I mean, I don't know, I guess y'all have driven by it, but if you look at the terrain, you know, most of that development is going to come right out, as Peggy mentioned, come off of Pearson and come right into the property and then have a cul-de-sac. There would be a second entrance that would come down between the, I'm guessing that's what we talked about in the Planning Commission, that would come down between the apartments to intersect Pearson at the lower level. But other than that, I don't know what they would see. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Gosley? Hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
The handwriting is challenging me here. This next individual, I want to say Craig Milburn. Am I getting close?
Pretty close.
Okay, thank you. You're probably being kind. Well, we're going to find out how close I really was, so please state your name and your address, please.
Than most. Craig Milburn, I live at 106 Four Oaks Lane. We had a mobile home park on Grand Point for years in our area that finally was cleaned up, taken care of, and it's gone now, and it was very, very unsightly. It created lots of foot traffic, and for it to be a problem for us, you don't have to see it. You just have to be near it. And anybody coming into our area had to pass it, and we finally got rid of it. But it's still, ingress and egress is still going to affect us on Matthews and on Pearson. In the mornings when you try to go to work, you can't go out Grand Point because you just can't get out. You have to go back through Pearson, right by this development, to get over to Broderick, to get to Shady Grove, to get into town. You just can't do it. And if you add another 60 cars in there, which is about what we're talking about, the apartment complex has created a problem for us already with that, but it's there. But this property could easily be developed with patio homes, assisted living possibilities. You've got commercial development right next door to it with the Budweiser plant. I know it's been for sale for a while, but to me, that's not the highest and best use to stack a mobile home park in there. The property values are $500,000 plus on many of the houses in this area. And I had, as a case in point, last week I was standing in my front yard. There's a sign next to me on Four Oaks Lane where a gentleman was looking at the lot, and I went over and spoke to him. I'm a realtor. It's just in my blood. And he visited with me a little bit, and I told him that I could get him a plat of it and so forth. And he said, well, I need to wait and see what's going to happen over there. I had seen the sign, but I thought it was just going to be annexed. I didn't know anything about the medium density or whatever, R4 or R12, whatever it ended up being. But he was not going to do anything, and that's just one small example. But it does make a big difference in our property values and in the growth in the area. So I think there are many other uses possible for that property.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Milburn? Thank you.
Thank you.
I did.
Oh, Director Garcia?
I'm not familiar. Is that District 6? Is that in the city or
Actually,
county?
It's not.
City.
It's in the county right now. But do we go to District 6?
So your property is in the county?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
And I can see it from my deck. So.
Thank you. As I indicated earlier, sometimes people may sign up on the wrong category, and this was probably, as you can surmise it, this gentleman he signed up in the 4 category, but he was really speaking against the ordinance. So now we'll move to the other column, and we'll first call on Michael McLillan. Please come and restate your name for the record and your address.
My name is Michael McLilly. I'm at 267 Pearson Drive, Hot Springs. I live right across from the property that is in question here, so I would be waking up and seeing the property every day, right outside my window. 30 years ago, well, let me start off. I was allowed the opportunity to write you a letter because, as you can tell, I am not a good speaker. So I wrote you a letter, and I apologize. I'm not a good writer either, so my penmanship is bad. 30 years ago, God spoke to me and asked me to build a chapel. It took 30 years of me going through multiple things before I listened to his call. In 2014, I started building my chapel on the property. I was blessed and I was pleased to put in my webpage, Grace Chapel Hot Springs, because I want my chapel to be a part of this town from here on, after I'm gone. I don't know if anyone's seen my chapel. I don't know if anybody's looked at the webpage, but I'm going to present a card so that you may look at it. My question is not whether the city is annexing this property or the property value. My problem is, what is it going to do to my chapel and my 30-year dream? The road they're talking about widening will take out my parking lot for the chapel and the tree line that goes in front of my chapel. And I just don't want to see that dream of mine for 30 years to come to this. If there's any way that I can invite any of you out to the property to talk with me and where I'm not as nervous, to look at my chapel, to see what I've done with my own two hands. I'm not a carpenter. I'm not a construction worker. I'm not a contractor. I did this with every bit of this was with God. He has brought me to this, and I don't want to see it gone. We started this with a prayer that God's will be done. And it's my prayer that God's will be done here and that y'all will be listening to God's voice and not the voice of money. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. McLillan?
I just wanted clarification. He stated that the annexation won't take out his parking lot or tree line, right? I mean, an annexation doesn't do that.
Right. What you're dealing with here are two issues, the annexation and then the assignment of a zoning district. The assignment of a zoning district is a legislative matter.
I'm not opposed to the annexation. That's not the thing. What I'm worried about is what will happen if the city can. I have the most property against that road other than the proposed property. And I'm worried about what widening the road will do to my side of the property.
And Director,
that's my main concern.
Do you have anything else, sir?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Director, as I was saying, and the rezoning is also a legislative function. Any development that might take place will come back to the Planning Commission in the form of a subdivision, perhaps a site plan, depending on what the application is for, maybe even require a conditional use application. Again, depending on what the sought after use is. Right now, we don't really know that. What we've heard is it may even be sold, so it may not even be the present owner that ends up doing the development.
So it doesn't sound like everybody understands
Right.
that. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have I do have a question of Mr. McLilly. Is the chapel...
Come forward again, please.
I'm sorry.
That way we can get it into the mic. And
I drove that area several days ago and just made sure I understood what was going on. Where you live, that chapel is across the road from you?
No, the chapel is on my property. I live in the mobile home that's just adjacent. I have the 3.5 acres there.
Okay, so all right.
Across from the property that is proposed.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
call Mr. Bob Baber. Hey, I'm getting better. Oh, well, thank you. Please state your name and address, please.
Yes, Bob Baber, 189 Matthews Drive, Hot Springs. And I'm opposed to this project. The affordable housing referenced earlier, I have seen a plat map of 53 units of mobile homes that'll be dropped in right above me. Right now, I have a house with, boat dock and everything, and this will just tremendous impact on me. I mountain bike up Pearson Drive with 100 and something more cars up there coming off that hill in two directions. The quality of life issue. I'm not opposed to annexation if we can have what was originally the county future use was, R1, low to medium density. If it could be annexed at R1 or even R2, I wouldn't be opposed, but we sure don't want a trailer park right above us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay, Mr. Stephen Smolin? Am I getting, oh my God, I'm rolling. Welcome.
Stephen Smolin, 201 Matthews Drive.
Thank you.
I'm against it. I'm for the annexation, but I'm against the R4. I would rather it to be R2 based on 16-2-42. R2 will be appropriate on steeper topography. Nothing was really said about the topography of this annexation of land. I think it goes from 480 to about 420. Hills on both sides and with a valley in the middle. So I think that was really not taken into account for an R4. So that's why R2 would probably be the max I would recommend it to do it, and R1 would also be what's kind of originally what's to do. Around there is commercial, which is the apartment complex, which is a commercial complex. There's, of course, commercial on the other side on Broderick, and then the Budweiser. And then everything around there is either R2 or residential lake. Our future, of course, once all that property becomes annexed to the hot spring, which more looking at the long-term goal of hot springs, to having all that area as R2, R lake, which residential lake would be I think a better goal of that area.
Okay. Very good. Any questions of Mr. Smolin? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I'm going to tell you, folks, these names aren't getting any easier. Mike Doust. Did I get that?
No, really.
No?
In Hot Springs, everybody calls me Mike Doust. The correct pronunciation, I'm originally from Canada. I'm now a U.S. citizen. The name originates in France, and the correct pronunciation is Daou, with the ST being silent.
Well, if you would have told me you were originally from Canada, I would have had that right. I mean, origin is everything,
There you go.
Thank you for allowing me to speak very shortly. I just want to say that I concur with my neighbors, Bob, Stephen, and earlier, everything that was said in opposition to this project, I concur. What I would like to add is contrary to what was said by the current owner and the real estate broker, is that I would have a direct view. I'm at 205 Matthews Drive. I would have a direct view of that property and whatever is built on it. And obviously it would have a tremendous impact on our property values. And therefore, I would oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, any questions? No. Thank you. Sue Burnett.
Mine was easy.
I know, I was just paused. I want to make sure I wasn't seeing something. Welcome.
I live at 195 Matthews Drive, which is directly across from Pearson. As a matter of fact, I've had so many cars off of Pearson in my front yard that all the neighbors laughed at the ruts in my front yard. I also own the property at parcel ID number 20244, which is on Pearson. It's the corner of Pearson and Matthews. So we have a double whammy there. If there is anything put in there other than single-family homes, we're all going to see it. We also have a problem with stormwater now. I can only imagine what it's going to be when this is developed. And what I don't understand is if this is not safe or developable, or whatever word you would use, for single-family homes, how can you put multifamily units on the same property? That just does not, I'm not an engineer, but that just doesn't make sense. If you've got the problem with electricity, if you've got the problem with roads, trees, high lines, whatever, you're still going to have those problems with a multifamily unit. So I'm definitely against the zoning. I'm not real crazy about the annexation, but that's okay. The zoning is what concerns me. I don't want to look out at a multifamily anything. Worked hard to get my home. Don't want to see the property values go down. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Burnett? Thank you. Mr. Mike Davenport, please.
Sir, everything's been covered, but you got the name right. Thank you.
I know. You could see that I was really studying it because you guys are tricking me. Thank you. Mr. Larry Hopkins. Please come forward and restate your name and your address, please.
My name's Larry Hopkins. I live at 102 Four Oaks Lane. I'm opposed to this. We bought the Butler Mobile Home on the corner of Grand Point and Matthews, and we've taken all the mobile homes off of that, and we're planning on developing it. We wanted it to be successful. We ran into a bunch of problems, and so we have cleared the mobile home park. Okay. I'm opposed because of a couple of reasons. One is the neighborhood consists of single-family homes. Any change of the development into high-density residence would not conform with the neighborhood. The apartments that are up there have been there since 1982. We realized the apartments were there when we bought our home. We did not realize that anyone in that area would be putting in more mobile homes. Okay. We have the runoff issues, which my friends have already talked about. So if you would like to go out and look at the area, I think that'd be a real benefit to the board. And the traffic issues. On Matthews Drive now, on both sides of the hill, there's a sign that said slow traffic, blind drive. That's where Four Oaks Lane meets. If we have more traffic coming through there, because there's only 2 exits out of there, plus the dead end on the other side coming back from the lake, it'll just be more traffic. So that's it.
Any questions of Mr. Hopkins? I'm kind of curious. You said you removed the mobile homes from your property because of some issues. Can you elaborate?
Yes, sir. I'm afraid I can. We bought a brand new mower, and the second day it was stolen. The police have looked into that. We had 2 different fires in the area, 3 different fires of the mobile homes. And so we decided that, hey, it was time to move the mobile homes out of that area. We helped people move. We gave 2 trailers away. We helped 2 other people move to areas, so there are other places to put mobile homes in the area. We haven't decided what we're going to do with the land, and we're not opposed to mobile homes. We're just opposed to mobile homes more in that area with 52 as the proposed plot would bring that much more traffic in.
Okay. 52. Thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
do have a
Director
question.
Powell.
Will you be in this annexed area? If this
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so what is your property zoned right now?
He wouldn't.
Single family.
He's not in the city limits, Director.
We're not in
I'm
the
sorry, say
city
that?
limits.
He's not in the city limits.
And that's why I asked, is he part of this annexation, or is this annexation all for one piece of property, one
Single
owner?
owner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes all those who had signed up to speak for and against the ordinance old 1931. At this time, we'll have discussion amongst the directors.
I would like to speak briefly, if I may.
Please feel free to come forward. And as you've heard before, we'd like to have your name and address, please.
I'm Mary Loy, and we have the property at 103 Four Oaks Drive, but we live 629 Quapaw, and we also have other property, Quapaw and Prospect. I want to say, first of all, I don't want you to think that we're some elitist group on Four Oaks Drive and Matthews and Pearson, because there's a mixture of all the economy levels, and we have lived side by side, neighbors out there for years and years and years without any problems, even when the mobile home park was there. The mobile home park had not been kept up before that family bought it, and it was in very poor condition. But we're not a group of elitists thinking we're better and we don't want this or we don't want that. We have lived neighborly, peacefully with Grand Point Bay, which has been ranked HUD, has been ranked Section 8, has been different through the years. And yet, we've never had any problems that I know of. It's been a peaceful existence in that community. The main concern that I think we have voiced appropriately is the road situation, which is like a little narrow pig trail coming down with Pearson, and that's going to increase greatly the traffic with children being picked up for school and different things. Also, there's a bridge out on the side road of the bypass between the Belk shopping center and then the rest of the side road that goes there. I can't remember the name of it, but is the main thoroughfare as far as coming off of the bypass there to get distributed in that area. There are a lot of things that have nothing to do with mobile homes or other things, just considerations that the city's going to have to spend to increase the road access, to increase bridges that should be built. So there are many things to be taken into consideration. Also, the appearance, as people come into our city and they take that bypass and see, what do we want them to see on the sides of our bypass roads? What vision are they going to have of Hot Springs, Arkansas? And are we going to maintain effective watchfulness that our rules are enforced as far as keeping up property, as far as maintaining property? Is the grass 6 inches high or is it 24 inches high? I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you. So this can, now, we're okay. Thank you, Mr. Gosling. We've had everybody who has asked to sign up, plus one others, to speak on this issue, and now we'll talk amongst the directors. Any discussion amongst directors?
I have some clarifying questions. One is, this ordinance is for the purpose of annexing and zoning, correct? The
Correct.
development, I've heard an awful lot about the development, and yet in no place did I see any proposed development. I would assume that the property development concepts that these folks are talking about are from sales documents that Mr. Gosley's company put together. I could be wrong. Would that be a fair assumption? Because if he's marketing it, I would assume he's marketing every available option for the use of that land to potential buyers. But to this point in time, nobody has really said we're going to put mobile homes on there. We're going to put multi-story Section 8 housing. We haven't heard. I haven't seen any of that. I drove that area the other day, and she best described it. The lady best described it when she called it similar to a pig trail going back in the woods. And annexation, or I should say development, is going to have to require improvement of that road, and I think that's going to be good for the area. So I guess I'm trying to resolve, where did this concept of the mobile homes going up there come from?
I've got a copy, excuse me. I've got something that might clarify that for you.
Well, let me just ask Mr. Gosley. You were marketing it, were you not, Mr. Gosley?
I wouldn't put them on. Asking for an R4. The road, the only way the road.
Mr. Gosley, why don't you come forward, because that way the audience at home and other people in the room can at least hear it amplified.
All we've asked for is R4 zoning. That's it. If that property is zoned RL, R1, it's going to sit there. That road, they're going to have the same traffic problems that they've always had. The majority of the people that, if that property is developed, they're going to go right down Pearson, turn on Broderick, go out. These people will not be affected whatsoever with traffic, unless they go down to the dollar store. That's what I see. But the only way that road's going to be improved, my opinion, is if it's zoned R4. As Peggy mentioned, we've tried to sell it residential. It's not going to happen. It's got too many problems. As someone mentioned, it's surrounded by commercial. Nobody's going to build a $200,000 house there, and you can hardly build, little garden houses. It's not cost effective. Mobile homes are not cost effective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a concept, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
I said, so this is one possible entity that could be up there, but there's been no proposal to develop it like that.
Well, Director Foley, Planning Director Selman is here tonight if you have some questions of her, but manufactured home parks are a conditional use.
Oh.
So any attempt to do that must go back through the Planning Commission with a site plan, and anybody who lives anywhere near or inside the city limits can come to that meeting and voice their concerns. There'll be a notice of that published in the paper, and it'll be posted on the property.
Do I understand? I thought I read somewhere that if this is in this area, if we decide not to even annex it, we cannot annex it for 5 more years. Is that correct?
Correct.
And if we don't annex this, but others want to come in nearby, we're precluded from doing that because that would create an enclave. Is that correct?
That is a potential, yes.
So not annexing, a voluntary annexation would essentially preclude us from doing any annexation in Area C for another 5 years.
It could. It could. I'll also point out that it is currently in the planning area, which means we have subdivision authority, not zoning authority, but subdivision authority. And so a petition could be brought to the Planning Commission to replat that 17 acres into some form of a subdivision. Now, albeit it may have to be with wells and septic tanks, but we would have no zoning control over it unless and until it's annexed.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be happy to read the list of permitted uses in an R4. Manufactured home subdivision is not on the list.
Okay.
It would have to be a conditional use.
Thank you.
So explain the procedure then on conditional use. You said that it would go back before the Planning Commission.
They would have to petition the Planning Commission. Ms. Selman?
Here's the authority.
Here. Kathy Selman, Planning and Development Director. Manufactured home park
actually is not allowed in any established zone. It would have to be done through plan development.
PD.
So it would require changing the zone to PD and coming in with a very complete and specific development plan and regulations.
Yeah. I wasn't speaking to if I did, I misspoke. I didn't mean a park, I mean a subdivision.
A subdivision can be done under the rules for the zone in which it is located, yes.
Right. 1635 states that manufactured home parks is only conditional use if it's within a qualified area, which it's not. And manufactured home subdivisions shall be allowed as a conditional use in zoning districts and in such manner as prescribed by the Hot Springs Zoning Code. So again, it has to come back through the Planning Commission with a detailed site plan. Conditional use requires that.
Thank you. Director Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. So the question before the board tonight is only to approve annexation, approve the zoning, and approve City District 6 for the area to be annexed in, is my understanding.
Unless one of the other board members objects to it going into 6. Is that?
No. But we have nothing before us to approve any type of development, any building. That would be a separate process, as was just stated, and any development or anything done would have to go back, and that's where, when they're talking about whatever they want to do, everyone can go to the Planning Commission to voice their concerns if they do not agree with what comes forth then. But I wanted a clarification. Ms. Loy said that this would increase the city's cost for the street. And I understood that any development of the area would pay for that.
Any improvement required of the street, any extension of water or sewer mains would be at the expense of the developer.
And any property that was disheveled or had problems would have to be put back in the way it was.
Yes, I mean, a developer should not have any reason to be on someone else's property or to take that property. That would require compensation. If it's an improvement to the roadway, they would have to stay within the designated right-of-way.
And currently, this property is in the county. The county's already approved it to be annexed to the city, but there's no zoning now, so anything could be put on that property now.
If the annexation
and so this
doesn't go through.
actually gives more protection.
It does. It gives the city oversight on its zoning laws, premise code requirements, all of those sorts of things. I would also point out that anything that's done with this property is going to require a subdivision, a new plat of the subdivision, because and thank you, Harmon, you've got it on page 533 of your packet. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots that are landlocked.
Right.
So the only way that those can be accessed would be through a public street or a private street on a recognized and an accepted final plat of that subdivision. So, which they could do now because they're in the planning area. But in order to have the zoning protection, they would need to be in the city.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Director Clark.
That was one of my 2 questions. Thank you, Director. My other one is it appears on the picture here, this is lakefront property, correct?
No, it's
Some
not.
of it is on the lake?
A portion is.
No,
It's not?
It's real close.
This right here is. It's not.
None of it's on the lake?
It's more wetlands
Okay.
than you would.
If you go to the end of the road, that's where you'll see the lake, but it's not lake property.
It's not what?
It's not lakefront property.
None of it
At all,
is?
no.
Okay.
Most westerly portion does touch the 400-foot contour, but it's just not. It's not deep water. You're not going to be taking a motorboat back there.
It's a
Thank you.
piece of energy property between it and the lake. They own Lake Hamilton, and that's just a dried section of the lake, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion amongst directors? Everybody understand what we're voting on today? Annexation with an assigned zone. Please call the roll.
Folly,
Aye.
Holliday,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Mayor McCabe.
Aye. Ordinance is adopted. That concludes the action items for today's meeting. Now we're into Board of Directors items for discussion. Any directors have items for discussion they'd like to bring up? Director Clark.
Yes, Mayor, thanks. Just one thing. In our consent agenda, we don't list all this out, but because I think it's important and we really appreciate these people, we did tonight appoint Kayla Cooley and Richard Myrick to the Hot Springs Transportation Advisory Committee, and we appreciate their time.
Thank you for noting that. Appreciate that. Any other director have an item for discussion? Okay. Director Jones, you have anything?
I'd like to move that we adjourn for the night, if it's proper.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you all and drive safely to your home.
Mhm.